Welcome back to the podcast. Me and Oscar are here yet again, to talk about some fights that we do every week, every Monday, every Thursday. We and Oscar are here to talk about some fights. On a Monday, we're here to recap the fights that happened on the weekend. And on the Thursday, we talk about the fights that are going to happen on the weekend. But now, today, we're going to be talking about Mariano Rodriguez versus Michelle Waterson. Almost got it. I got out in the end. But yeah, how's it going, Oscar? How's it going over there in America? How's the weather?
It's going excellent. The fights were pretty short, There was only 9 fights. That card felt like it was cursed, from losing the main event and the co-main event a week out. I'm just happy the UFC was able to put it back together and put on a pretty good card.
Yeah, as you mentioned there, the card kind of fell to pieces a little bit. Diego Sanchez, the whole situation happened with him. Oh my God. Have you seen that video on Twitter?
Oh, it's so annoying to watch. That guy is far from a logical argument. Any argument he's made just sounds like he's an alien, man. That guy is out of his mind, and he also has Diego out of his mind. It's very unfortunate to see. I wouldn't want to do another half hour on this guy, so let's move on.
Exactly. Let's move on. So let's talk about some fights, some good fights. So we'll start off at the top that we usually do. Mariano Rodriguez versus Michelle Waterson at the main event. It was a great fight. It entertained quite a lot of people. Heading into this fight card, a lot of people think, should they really be main eventing? But boy, did they deliver. It was a great fight, wasn't it, Oscar?
Yeah, they proved that they belonged in that spot. A lot of people were saying, I'll watch the Canelo fight instead. But I actually got my eyes on this fight over the Canelo fight because they picked up the pace as the fight went. Of course, Marina Rodriguez was slightly jet-lagged, I would have to assume, because she just got into the country a couple of days before the fight, and she really didn't look like that too much. Of course, she didn't suffer from that big weight cut to strawweight this time, so she looked stronger, and she looked very dangerous. And she obviously had more power than Michelle Waterson, and she bullied her the first couple of rounds, but Michelle did make a comeback in that 4th round with the takedown, but in the end, she was just outmatched. But Michelle Waterson has some serious cardio in that last round. She messed up Marina Rodriguez's jaw, causing her not to do a post-fight interview. What do you think about Marina Rodriguez's performance, and what should be next for her?
It was great on short notice. You think these both women took the fight on short notice, and they didn't get much time to prepare for one another. But man, they put on a show, put on a head of performance. Both women should keep their head up high. It was a great performance for both women. But next, I would love to see Mackenzie Dern or Jonas Jacek. I think them two fights there next to Marina Rodriguez would make a hell of a lot of sense. I think it's a great move. It makes a lot of sense, as I mentioned before. But I think either Dern or Rodriguez fights Jonas Jacek. I think that one there it has to be made either one of them. Which one would I prefer? Probably Mackenzie Dern. I think Mackenzie Dern versus Jonas Jacek would be more enticing in my opinion. But if she can't get any of their matchups, Mackenzie Dern or Jonas Jacek, and maybe I'm liking the matchup with maybe Tatiana Suarez if she's maybe to come back. But I'm not too sure what is her schedule and when she can come back.
Tatiana Suarez is coming back at flyweight. She says that weight cut strawweight is just not ideal for her at this point. But I do think Juan Jacek should end up fighting Marina Rodriguez simply because it would be a banger of a fight. Those two girls have excellent Muay Thai, and they both have very similar styles. So I think it would be almost of a mirror matchup where we would be seeing an awesome striking battle that would probably get the fight of the night and would be memorable. The Mackenzie Dern matchup for those two is very tough for Marina Rodriguez, who always gets taken down. Other people will probably beat her. That night wasn't the case, so Rodriguez could surprises, but the Dern matchup is a nightmare for her, even though she's a black belt of jiu-jitsu. But as we know, Dern just has that jiu-jitsu that is beyond a black belt.
All right, we're having some problems with your Wi-Fi, Oscar. So quickly plug it in and out or reconnect, and we'll continue this. But yeah, Marina Rodriguez looked incredible. Both women put on a fantastic performance. Great fight. One that really did look like it was going to entertain going into the fight weekend. But man, did they entertain? Both women, showed class in this fight. Marina Rodriguez put the pressure on it early on. What Marcel Waterson kind of put on a late comeback, but Rodriguez, her youth, really prevailed in this fight and got the job done. But let's talk. While we're talking about youth, Donald Cerrone, that he's not got very much of it left in him. Donald Cerrone getting knocked out against Alex Morono in the first round, a standard TKO. That's 5 losses on the bounce now for Donald Cerrone. It's not looking good for him. If you're questioning where he could be next, and it's a great time to bring Oscar in that conversation. What is next for Donald Cerrone?
A lot of people are saying retirement should be next for him, but I don't think that's the case. He took this fight on short notice against the guy. Let's be honest, he had no interest in fighting Alex Morono. He only took it because that's who Cowboy is. He'll fight anybody at any time. He was planning on moving down to lightweight, and he took the fight against Diego Sanchez because Diego Sanchez used to be a lightweight. So that's why he took that fight, and that's why he was at welterweight here. But the move to lightweight makes sense. They don't hit as hard. They're not going to get him out of there in the first round, especially at the lower level. So Donald Cerrone should test the waters at lightweight again. And if he fails again, then we'll talk retirement. But I would like to see him fight the winner of Jay Herbert and Renato Moicano. Because as we know, Moicano is a very grappling-heavy type of fighter. But he's got some decent striking. So I think if Cowboy fails to beat the winner of Moicano and Herbert, then we should talk about retirement. But I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to Cowboy here because he took this on short notice, and he should not be at the weight class anyway.
Yeah, last mentioned as well, Donald Cerrone is still ranked at lightweight. If you look to the lightweight rank, he's still number 15. So, it makes sense for him to go down.
Absolutely. Cowboy had some really stellar performances at lightweight. In fact, that's where he's had his legendary win streak that, of course, ended in disaster against Dos Anjos. But if you remember that fight, Eddie Perez, I don't think.
Wow. The Wi-Fi is really bad. Oscar, I can barely fit in the word that you're saying. I'll talk about the fight. But yeah, Donald Cerrone, go back down to 155 is probably the logical option for him now. He said that he didn't want to hang up, didn't want to retire. He still feels like he's got some fight left in him, which is Donald Cerrone is always going to say that. It's Donald Cerrone, for God's sake. This guy, he fights anyone, anywhere, any given time. Doesn't matter the circumstance. He's going to be there. He's going to step in, fight anyone, and that's what he did with Alex Morono. He stepped in, fought him, didn't get the win. But it's Donald Cerrone. We know how this guy's a legend. Next, I'd like to, as Oscar, my co-partner, was trying to say, Jay Herbert versus was it Jay Herbert versus Renato Moicano? That's a good matchup for him next. He's still ranked at lightweight. It makes a lot of sense. But yeah, it was a great fight. Alex Morono clipped him early, finished the fight, standing TK across the fence, and finished the fight. Donald Cerrone, he said he was disappointed because. Obviously he lost. Nothing really more else to say, really. But then the battle of Neils happened. Neil Magny versus Jeff Neal. 1-0 was going to win. 1-0 was going to exit the cage as a winner, as the winner of the fight, obviously. Neil Magny went into that fight, and before in our preview that we didn't do last week, but Oscar managed to fit one in. I thought Neil Magny was going to win this fight. I think the length, the range was too great for Neil to really, get inside and, do his work. It really reminded me of like a a Wonder Boy versus Neil situation, but what Neil doesn't have that, karate stance. He's very long for the division, and he just really showed in this fight that Neil, he needs to work out what he needs to do next in his career. Maybe get a solid game plan into fights. We know how explosive he is. We saw that against Mike Perry. We knocked him out with that head kick, finished up with the strikes. But yeah, I thought the range and the length and the Neil Magny in this fight was just too much of a factor for Jeff Neal. It caused him so much problems, and the wrestling also, the grappling, that was a good exchange. But yeah, I think Magny looked great. Now next up for him is Kamza Chimaev. Is that correct?
It is. Kamza Chimaev called for it, and Neil Magny accepted. So I don't know why the UFC would decide to have any other matchup. Neil Magny continues to shut down these prospects. Once again, he shut down a very powerful guy, and Jeff Neal, who's very dangerous early on, but as you saw later in the fight, not so much. And Jeff Neal did show decent cardio against Wonder Boy, but he did admit that ever since he had that life-threatening infection, I believe it's called sepsis, and it's just not. It was just not good for his performance here. And it kind of showed. Neil Magny was able to take over as the fight went on. And I don't think Jeff Neal fought like himself too much in that fight. He was continuously clinching. You usually see him go for very big shots, just like he did against Mike Perry. He got him out of there in under 2 minutes. So this was just not the Jeff Neal was expecting to fight that night. So my pick was incorrect here. And Neil Magny is just not the guy you want to bet on if he's the favorite, because as an underdog, he's shown once again that he will deliver.
Yeah, talking about guys you don't want to bet on, and I really bad. I feel really bad saying this, but Maurice Green, man, you can't really rely on this guy. How much I like him, I love him as a fighter. I followed his Ultimate Fighter, his what should I say, his Ultimate Fighter experience, his story. He really touched me. The stuff what happened in the house, I saw he had some adversity, came back from it, got into the UFC, had some success, got ranked, but man, he's fell off as of late. Hardy got knocked out by Hardy, but now just got decisioned by Rodrigo de Lima, but he had no success in this fight. Once Lima saw he was much better than Green on the ground, that was it. It was game over. Green has no answer for the takedown defense, and it was plain and simple. But it wouldn't surprise me, and it really hurts me to say this. It really wouldn't surprise me if Maurice Green gets cut in the next few days, in next few weeks.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet on Maurice Green sticking around in the UFC, to be honest. He did not look good in any way in this fight, especially a guy in Marcos Rogerio de Lima, who tends to gas early on. I expected that's where Maurice Green could shine a little in the second round, but I told the guys in the preview that if this gets out of the first round, I strongly suggest that you turn off your TV or something like that, because this is not fun to watch in any way. I did not get any ounce of enjoyment watching the last 2 rounds of the fight. And when you have a performance as flat as that, I don't think Dana wants to keep you around.
Yeah, it was an interesting situation. After the first round, it was just pretty much a wrestling dominance from Lima. It wasn't very exciting, but he done what he had to do. He got the job done, and he moves up in the rankings. But yeah, as we mentioned, I think this might be the last fight in Green inside the UFC. I don't think we'll see him, maybe many more, but he might be cut after this. But Lima gets back into that win column and improves. But you talked about enjoyment fights, and oh my God, did Gregor Gillespie and Diego Ferreira deliver? This was an absolute banger. So start to finish, Gregor Gillespie put on the pressure against Diego Ferreira. The one I really want to see was I wanted to see the wrestling exchanges, the scrambles. And this is what I was really looking forward to. And oh boy, did they deliver. It was a great performance from Gregor Gillespie. Diego Ferreira landed some great punches of his own. His striking looked very good. I think he was clipping Gregor Gillespie. But in that second round, he kind of just faded. And after that first round, it maybe looked like Gregor Gillespie was going to be the more exhausted at the two. And then all of a sudden, Diego Ferreira just had adrenaline jump, and that was it. He was exhausted, got flattened, and eventually got ground and pounded. But Gregor Gillespie returns back to winning ways in a fantastic fight. It was incredible to watch. What's your thoughts on it, Oscar?
I said this would be a competitive fight, and it was,
Mhm.
especially since Diego Ferreira missed weight by a considerable amount. That guy looked really big in there. He looked like he was a welterweight in there that night. So props to Gregor Gillespie looking like $1 million in the second round, because in the first round he was having a rough night at the office. I actually bet Gregor Gillespie to win this by decision because I thought Diego Ferreira is very durable. He's not going to get submitted, and Gregor proved that he's better than I even thought. He got some serious ground and pound going, and when you see a guy like Diego Ferreira just completely go into the fetal position and not want to fight anymore. He got broken in there by Gregor. That was very impressive. That you see a guy like Fajeda who fought Tyson, who's a straight up killer. That guy is one of the best wrestlers in the UFC. We learned that Gregor Gillespie is just a different level, and he earned the spot in the top 10 with this win, if you ask me.
It was a great fight, a very underrated fight on the card as well. I thought it was a great fight going into the card. And Greg Gillespie, had to bounce back huge after that, very, very big loss against Kevin Lee. Really got put out. He put his lights out in that fight. It was a huge KO loss. He needed a statement, maybe a little bit of a exciting fight to get his name back into the mix, and that's what happened. Diego Ferreira, he's a very good fighter. He lost against Benil Dariush, and now he falls back-to-back losses against Greg Gillespie, but he's a great fighter. He'll come back. His BJJ is incredible, but Greg Gillespie just beat him to every transition. In this fight, it seemed like it was a position over submission for Gregor Gillespie, and that's what he done perfectly. He executed the game plan perfectly. Yes, he got caught a few punches. Yes, at the end of the first round, he looked like it. He was done for, but he came out second round. Diego Ferreira, couldn't handle the pressure, and that was it. He crumbled, and Gregor Gillespie flattened him out. Got that ground and pound and improves to 14-1 and looks to get into the top 10. I'm not too sure who called him out. Well, actually, most of the division, because he said he was the best fisherman inside the UFC, and everyone called him out.
Yeah, we saw Habib sharing an image of Islam Makhachev with a big old fish there. So I think that makes sense. Two of the best wrestlers in the division. They should go at it. Everybody's turning down fights with these guys because they have a suffocating wrestling style. And I think they should fight each other because we will learn who's the better striker in that matchup. And if Islam can beat Gregor, then I'll probably have no doubts about him moving forward.
A little bit of news that just came out via ESPN. The PFL fight between Fabricio Werdum and Ronel Ferreira from last Thursday has been overturned to a no contest via the New Jersey State Athletic Control Board. So that's interesting. Fabricio Werdum got his wish to get it overturned to a no contest, and that's what happened. So, credit to him for sticking and, going for the appeal. But talking, actually, no, I was talking about appeals. That was TJ Brown. That was last week. But we had Phil Hawes on this week, and he stepped in against Carl Dawkins on short notice. He was double booked, which I never knew. He was double booked. He was slated to fight Dorian Wynn in July, and he stepped in the short notice to fight Carl Dawkins, and that fight is still going ahead. This man's an absolute monster. He's a savage, and against Carl Dawkins, he got the win. And deservedly so. How would you rate his performance?
I would rate his performance a 10 out of 10. If you're looking for more interviews, I'll add the TJ Brown interview at the end of this one. Very interesting to hear his perspective on Nick Sick wanting to overturn it. But Phil Haas looked as impressive as ever. We attach interviews to the end of the podcast episodes, but sometimes we might pick against that fighter just because of honesty. We like to be honest over here. We like to send you guys in the right direction in terms of picks. And Phil Haas proved me very wrong. His cardio was very impressive against a guy in Kyle Dawkins who actually gets better as the fight goes on. But Kyle Dawkins had a tough night. He actually pieced up Phil Haas early in that second round. But later in that fight, he was on his back and he could do nothing. He was just getting ground and pounded over and over again against Phil Haas. How impressive was Phil Haas?
Yeah, it was a great fight. Phil Haas, improved. And you mentioned that cardio. What a fight. Cardio looks like, Cain Velasquez, it was incredible. I'm not saying he's comparing it to Cain Velasquez, but it looks much, much better to what we've seen in the past. And he's definitely worked on that side of his area. And obviously, we know he has that power as well. So he's a dangerous fighter, 185 pounds. And I like his mentality. He has his eyes set on the champ, Israel Adesanya. That's what you always want to see from a fighter. He knows their end goal, and he definitely knows his end goal. A fight that really surprised me, I really thought it was going to go the other way, was Mike Triziano versus Ludovic Klein. I thought Ludovic Klein is a great prospect. He's going to go on, especially what we've seen against Shane Young. Put his lights out, incredible head kick, finished the fight. I thought this was going to go the similar way. I thought Ludovic Klein was going to get the KO, and oh boy, was I wrong. Mike Triziano came back with a mullet, and he looked incredible. He looked reborn, looked rejuvenated, and he looked as best as I've ever seen him. What's your thoughts on the fight?
I picked no, I didn't. I picked Ludovic Klein. He was the biggest favorite on the card, and his head kicks are out of this world. But we saw Ludovic Klein unable to land the big head kick, and he was in trouble in this fight. He actually got pieced up really bad in the second round. Ludovic Klein got the takedowns in this fight, which really surprised me. But all three judges didn't even see a single round for Ludovic Klein, which really shocked me here. The decision was a little suspect, but I think it went to the right guy. Trezano was coming off a long layoff, and he looked as good as ever here, and he's a reborn fighter, and I would like to see him fight Jared Gordon next, the guy who just beat up prospect in Danny Chavez. What do you think about the matchup between Jared Gordon and we were just talking about Michael Trezano and Jared Gordon? What do you think about that?
Yeah, sorry, but I had some trouble with my my headphones. I couldn't hear you. It was very quiet, but I sorted it now. I think I've got it. Anyway, the technology today hasn't been too great from us. So apologies on our behalf. But yeah, what was your question again? Sorry.
Yeah, I would like to see Jared Gordon against Michael Trezano because those two are on the ups in this featherweight division. Do you think that would be a decent fight?
Yeah, that's a great fight, but not to jump the gun. Jared Gordon, I've got a little bit of maybe a little bit of inside. Jared Gordon is, potentially making potentially welcoming Paddy Pimblett to the UFC.
Wow, that would be phenomenal, and that's exactly the right fight for Paddy Pimblett, a guy who is very experienced in Jared Gordon. That's why I threw out the Jared Gordon matchup here. The guy's very experienced in the UFC. And I'll always watch that guy fight because he always brings it.
Yeah, Paddy Pimblett told me that he's pushing for late August to make that fight with Gordon. And he wants to get one back for Chris Fishgold because Gordon beat Fish. And now he wants to get one back. He wants the revenge.
Makes a ton of sense to me. That was exactly what I wanted to see for Paddy Pimblett. We saw Guram Kudaladzej calling him out. That just doesn't make sense why put two prospects against each other. So to see a vet in there against Paddy Pimblett, it makes a lot of sense.
Definitely. So while we're on the topic of 145 pounds, you said what's next for Mike Triziano. What was your pick? Jared Gordon. So if that's not an option, if he fights Paddy Pimblett, what's on the top of your head?
I would say Omar Morales. Omar Morales looked really impressive against Shane Young, so book that fight.
Yeah, definitely. That would be a great fight. And moving on, should we move on to the next fight? Junior Park versus Taffer Chewie. I'm so bad with names. Nchukwi. Oh god, Taffer Nchukwi. Yeah, in this fight, I really thought Taffer was going to get the win. I don't know what it was. I think I had a little sense that came inside me, and I thought, Taffer he's a great prospect. He's 5-0, and this fight, Junior Park is he derailed that hype train a little bit, and really put on a good performance, a good striking performance. Took a lot of shots, but that staph infection, man, how did no one see that? That was looked like a bullet.
Yeah, that was very gnarly to see. I picked the underdog here with pretty great confidence. Taffer Nchukwi only has 5 MMA fights, 6 now with this one, but we saw Park over and over again wrestle these guys for 3 rounds, and that's not what he was able to do here. He's actually a boxer, and he probably won the first round if you ask me. Second round was very close, but it didn't matter because the point deduction. But in the end, the right guy got the decision. At the end of the fight, you saw a lot of blood on that mat because Park did some really good damage with his ground and pound. So Park should have won the fight, just like expected, because his wrestling was better. But I didn't think his striking would be slightly ahead, I guess you could say. I think he had somewhat of a speed advantage, which helped him out here. And Chewie he's just not that experienced. They were actually going to give him a developmental contract with a win, but he got such an impressive knockout in front of Dana. They said, let's get him straight into the UFC. So maybe Nchukwu's not ready for the UFC level yet, but Park definitely is. And I think he should fight Carl Roberson, a guy who got submitted a couple of weeks ago. So I think that matchup makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, that's a great matchup that you suggested. Yeah, John Park was just really the wrestling. Even though he's not a wrestler, that's what really dominated the fight. He was primarily a boxer. Yes, his boxing looked great too. I thought Taffer would get the win, and I was wrong. It was a great performance of John Park, and he improves, gets another win inside the UFC, and he's upsetting the odds once again. But a debut. Let's talk about a fantastic debut from Carlton Harris, a guy that was on Dana White looking for a fight, I believe it was, with the Khabib episode. And this guy submitted Khabib's friend in this episode. He submitted Khabib's friend and then talked to Dana White and said, I want this shot. I'm hungry. I want this shot. I was homeless. I left my family to come out for this fight, to perform in front of you. I sacrificed so much. And then Dana White said, I could not give him a contract. So Dana White gave him a contract, got his debut against Christina Aguilera, and submitted him in under 3 minutes. It was an incredible debut. The submission and on the choke. This guy can be a future, maybe a future a challenger in the rankings. This guy's got a lot of potential. His submission game is very good, as we've seen. What do you reckon's the future for Carlton Harris? Where can we see him go?
The future is very bright for Carlton Harris. A lot of people were talking about his jiu-jitsu heading into this fight, but what they ignored was the power in his hands. He's got some knockouts on his record. And here, Christian Aguilera, very bad in that fight. And Aguilera panic wrestled and got caught in a brutal Bravo choke, I believe it was, that really put his lights out. You could see the guy's eyes nearly popping out as Carlton Harris let go of the submission. So Harris looks very impressive, and he should get a step up in competition. He shouldn't, because he is a little older. He's near 35. I believe he's 33. He should fight Dwight Grant. Dwight Grant is a guy who, quite frankly, did not earn his last victory, and that's a very tough matchup for Dwight Grant, but Dwight Grant can always knock you out. So I think that matchup should be next, and it would be probably a situation where you see Harris as a minus 300 favorite, because that's just how impressive he looked tonight, last weekend.
Yeah, he looked great, and it was a great debut. The story behind him is fantastic. But that's done for the UFC recap. It was a great night. Rodriguez, Michelle Watson put on a great fight. Greg Gillespie versus Diego Ferreira really stole the show. Greg Gillespie bounces back. Donald Cerrone, it didn't look too great. Got knocked out. Got finished. Who else did we see? Amanda Ribas versus Angela Hill was meant to happen, but that's been rescheduled for May 5th, I think. Oh, wait, we've been May 5th. What was it, May 22nd?
June 5th.
June 22nd. June 5th. That's it. I'm not ahead of time. Yep. We've got some Bellator fights, though, that happened over the weekend as well. Anthony Rumble Johnson was meant to take on Yoel Romero, but a late shortest notice opponent stepped in. But yeah, we'll quickly recap the UFC. It was a great night. Rodriguez versus Watson put on a great show, and it was a great fight card, top to bottom. Some good fights, and that's all we have to really say from me and Oscar. But Bellator happened. Sergio Pettis versus Juan Archuleta for the bantamweight Bellator bantamweight title, and Sergio Pettis really put on a masterclass against Juan Archuleta. He really stole the show. His hand looks good. He looked really good in this fight. Did you watch this fight, and how did you see this going before? And how did you think it went?
Yeah, I actually did see this entire card. This was a rare instance where Bellator actually had the better card. Uh, that co-main event was a barn burner. But let's start at the top where we had that bantamweight title fight between Pettis and Archuleta. I have a lot to say about this. Pettis looked as good as he ever has looked. He actually lost to Ryan Benoit in the UFC. He got knocked out. And I had a lot of doubts about him after that. I was thinking he's probably not cut out for the title picture in any promotion, really. But in this case, he proved that he was championship worthy. And he joins his brother as a champion in a major organization, and this is exactly what you want to see from former UFC guys. Because as of late, we've seen them get absolutely destroyed by these young guys in other promotions. So good for Sergio Pettis here. What do you think about his performance?
Yeah, he looked great, as you mentioned there. Both Pettis brothers now have a championship in a major organization, so it was great to see him get it done. After in the UFC, he didn't have the great success. You win one, then lose some. This guy's fought a bunch of killers inside the UFC. He's lost against Henry Cejudo, Joseph Benavidez. He has a win over Joseph Benavidez, so he's had some great wins. But he's always fell short. And as you mentioned, he's never really, you never thought he was going to be that title worth and that quality. But he got there in the end in Bellator, and he eventually got it done. And against a really good, worthy opponent, Juan Archuleta, who was on Kingdom, by the way, a great TV show. I recommend that. And yeah, Sergio Pettis put on a great performance, a masterful performance on the hands. But let's talk about a firecracker. Anthony Johnson versus Jose Agosto. Put on an absolute show. It was incredible to see. In the first round, Anthony Johnson got hurt after he hurt Agosto, and it looked like it was going to go Agosto's way. It looked like Agosto hurt his hand in the first round. He was shaking it a little bit. He looked like he was every time he threw it, he looked like he was like hurting. But yeah, it wasn't looking too good for Jose. And after he hurt his hand, he was shaking it about. He got clipped by Anthony Johnson up against the fence. And then Jose comes back, fires back with a check left hook. Does the chicken? Anthony Johnson does the chicken dance, puts on the pressure. And then it was just a great fight. What did you think of this fight?
I thought Rumble Johnson was going to run through Jose. That was not the case. Rumble Johnson, he was very vulnerable in that fight when he got, as you said, he got clipped really bad. And I thought Augusto was going to finish him right then and there. But props to Rumble Johnson. The guy's been historically durable. So he pulled off the knockout here. And he moves on to fight Nemkov in July for the title. So if Rumble Johnson can get his hands on that title, that'll be a really cool story for a guy like Rumble Johnson to come back out of retirement after losing in DC by rear naked choke twice, to come back to come to Bellator and to get his hands on a major belt. That would be a really cool story. But I actually don't think that'll be the case. Nemkov looks excellent, and I think Nemkov probably knocks out Anthony Rumble Johnson when they fight.
Yeah, as you mentioned there, a retirement, and then he came back. This is his comeback. Yes, he looked in great shape, but it was the fight that really mattered. Yes, he got the knockout, he got the win, but let's be honest, he wasn't. I wouldn't really say it was an impressive win. Definitely, Anthony Johnson would look at his performance and maybe thought he could have done a little bit better. But he did get hurt in that fight, and if I'm Vadim Nemkov, I'm seeing that. I'm thinking, yeah, I've got a real chance. I believe Vadim Nemkov will think that anyway. Vadim Nemkov is an absolute killer. This guy is a Team Fedor protege. Fedor Emelianenko holds him under his wing. He's an absolute killer. We've seen what he done to Ryan Bader, put on a masterclass against Phil Davies, and I agree with you. I think we're going to see a knockout, and I think it's become from Vadim Nemkov. But we can't rule out Anthony Rumble Johnson. This guy's got freakish power, as we've seen in the Jose fight. All it takes is one fight, one punch, to clip you, and you could be out looking up at the stars, looking up the lights, not knowing what happened. But Vadim Nemkov also possesses that power, possesses that unorthodox striking, that head kicks. But it's going to be a tough night for both men, and I see Vadim Nemkov coming out on top, though.
I do. Nemkov, he may have lost to Yuri Prohaska early in his career. He's had some close fights, but I think he's really leveled up here. And I don't think Anthony Johnson has improved, to be honest. I think he might have gotten a little worse. I don't think the Johnson of old would have gotten clipped like that.
Well, let's talk about another great fight between Peter Queally and Patricky Pitbull. Put on an absolute fan-friendly fight. The fight got stopped due to a cut, which I thought was a little bit premature. Yes, the cut was in a bad place, but it wasn't really going in his eyes. It looked really like it wasn't going to really harm Patricky Pitbull. Yes, it was a deep cut, but I feel like the fight could have carried on. I think Patricky Pitbull would have happily carried on. It was a great fight. Nothing really to be said there. They put on a great show. Peter Queally, I believe, was winning the fight, but when it ended, so maybe it was lucky for Patricky Pitbull, but he wants that rematch.
The rematch should be next. Patricky Pitbull was not having the best fight. It was a very competitive fight, but Pitbull probably didn't have the performance he wanted in there, and it's very unfortunate to see this stop by a cut. It's always frustrating when a cut gets in the way, because that's why PFL doesn't allow elbows in their promotion, because it can definitely interfere with plans here. But the rematch should happen next, but a very, very fun scrap to watch.
Let's talk about entertaining. When you talk about entertaining inside the MMA community, there's a one man that really, pops out, and that man is MVP, Michael Venom Page. Whether you like him or not, you're tuning in to watch him. And if it's a card, you're tuning in specifically to watch him to see how he looks. Michael Page is an entertainer fire. He comes out to show. He entertains the fans. He entertains everybody who's watching. And oh my God, he put on an absolute clinic against Derek Anderson. That kick, and it just shattered his nose. It was incredible. Great timing, great placement. And just ultimately, Derek Anderson didn't want no more after he noticed that his nose was basically caved in. It was ridiculous. A great performance from MVP. He moves on. What I would like to see next is maybe the rematch with Lima. I think it really needs to happen now. I think they need to really book that in next. And maybe if it's not Lima, actually Lima's fighting Amazov, so he's got to wait a little bit of time. So he's Douglas Lima's fighting Yarazov Amazov, so he's going to have to wait if he wants that rematch. So what would I do for MVP while I'm waiting? In the welterweight rankings, who have you got? You got Paul Daly versus Zabah Hamasi. That happened. Paul Daly got the win. But Paul Daly doesn't really want to come down to 170 pounds unless it's for a title. So he's getting to the end of his career now. Paul Daly and MVP have fought before. Paul Daly got MVP got the win. But what would you do for MVP next?
It's really tough to say. I don't know if he should wait for the title shot, because he really took no major damage in this fight, if any. Derek, of course, had a rough night at the office. His nose was in a really bad spot, and it would have been unwise to continue fighting after that, because we would have seen MVP probably land a flying knee or something. That would have done even more damage, that nose. MVP is must-see TV. This guy tends to deliver exciting finishes, and he's exactly the kind of fighter that Dana White would sign if he saw him on the Contender Series at some point. But I think he's happy in Bellator right now, and maybe we'll see Michael Venom Page fight for the belt next. I think he deserves it already, but there's really nobody that stands out to me right now for him to fight. But waiting for
maybe
the title
Jason
shot
Jackson
would be. Yeah, Jason Jackson got the good win over Benson Henderson. That was a fight that a lot of people assumed Benson Henderson would win just because he's a former champ. But Jason Jackson looked very impressive that night, and that makes
Jason
a ton
Jackson
of sense. That's a good suggestion. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yep, Jason Jackson has been looking good so far, and that makes a ton of sense. That's a really good suggestion.
Well, we'll end the recap of Bellator there and at the end of the podcast. But some great fights that happened on Bellator. As you mentioned there, it was the best card of the weekend when we're talking about MMA. But boxing happened. That really stole the show as well. If you watch that incredible fight, Canelo got his hand raised, stopped the fight in the 8th round after pretty much shattered BGS's socket, and he really didn't want to continue. But let's talk about some other fights. Johnny Campbell upset the odds, beat Henry Corrales. I thought Henry Corrales was going to win that. His debut at 135 pounds. Johnny Campbell stepped to the short nose and got that win. It was a great fight. Weber Almeida as well. I thought he was going to win this fight. A great prospect. Looking at that, and a great prospect. Lyoto Machida, protege. Unfortunately, he didn't get the win that night. UFC vet Eric Perez returned, got the win. Patchy Mix against Albert Morales, Albert Morales was on the show. I was really rooting for him in this fight. I really wanted to get it done. He's a likable character. The interview was fun. We had a good bond, a good chat. It was, it was just a great interview all around. I was really rooting for this fight, and he gave it a good go. I thought he gave a good account of himself. There was no negatives in there for me for Albert Morales. He really went in there to win. And that he almost done it. He put on a great performance. But Patchy Mix just, had that enough to get in there. He was the fresher man in round 3. Eventually got that submission. Lorenz Larkin put on a great fight against Rafael Carvalho. Split decision. Lorenz Larkin, a former UFC fighter, went up to 185 pounds for this fight, but now he says he's dropping back down to 170. Rafael Stotts put on a unanimous decision versus Josh Hill. Rafael Stotts is a great fighter. His only loss, you might remember him, his only loss comes via Merab Dvalishvili, and that was a spinning back fist. It was on looking for a fight.
Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
You remember?
Yeah, looking for a fight has produced some really talented fighters. Randy Brown comes to mind when you talk about looking for a fight. Also, I believe it slipped my mind right there. But Merab Dvalishvili coming out looking for a fight is a testament to how important that show is. And unfortunately, due to COVID, they couldn't do it for a while. But you just saw who came out Dana White's looking for a fight. Carlton Harris is the real deal.
I'll repeat that. The Wi-Fi keeps going over on my end. But yeah, it's been a great show for me and Oscar. It's been a great to talk about the fights. Bellator happened on the weekend. UFC happened on the weekend. Canelo versus Saunders happened on the weekend. It was a great weekend of fights. And we have a great weekend of fights this weekend too. UFC 262, Oliveira versus Chandler. It's going to be a great fight. Me and Oscar will have that breakdown on Thursday. Talk about a fight, who we think is going to take it. So make sure you tune on the YouTube, MMA Unhinged, to get that prediction in. Anyway, from me and Oscar, it's been a very good bye. Oscar, you got any last words?